Happy Wednesday. Greetings from my apartment back in New York City. I am back in the magic of the city. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I would highly suggest it. It's at Kim Kalp because I'm giving everybody a sort of sneak peek about what New York City is like right now, because I'm getting a lot of questions about, now that I'm back, what the heck does the city look like? So follow me on there if you aren't already. But happy Wednesday. I hope you are amazing. We have Jen and Jeff and Jennifer, and I love seeing everybody. Let us know where you're from, just so everyone can kind of get to know where everybody. I know Kelly was from Pennsylvania, and we got some, I think Nashville I saw in there. So I'm coming to you from New York City, but would love to know where in the world you are coming from. And I'd also like to know where you're coming from so we can let our guest Alex know kind of what the drill is on these Wednesday coffees. So I'm really excited for you to meet Alex Lieberman, the CEO of Morning Brew. I actually found out about the newsletter here during one of our coffee sessions, and I was asking Jeff earlier via text, like, who told us about this? Because someone did, and I can't remember if it was like somebody who just popped in or if it was a guest. Like, somebody told us about Morning Brew, and I can't remember who, but someone did. I signed up because I take all of my advice from here. When anybody says to read a book or listen to a podcast or sign up for something, I literally end our meeting and then I go and do that. So I signed up for Morning Brew a couple weeks ago. Oh my gosh, Brazil, Switzerland, UK, Jen's in St. Louis. Woo, so many fun people from all over the place. Anyway, I signed up for Morning Brew and I was like, this is the best thing ever. So I blindly reached out to Alex and was like, I'm a super fan of your newsletter. So I was really excited that he made the time to join us today. Like I said, amazing CEO. Morning Brew has grown into over 2 million subscribers. It's amazing. He's also a podcast host of a really cool podcast that we're going to get into called Founders Journal. I put in his tag, but if you haven't stalked him, go stalk him, because we're skipping over all the 101 stuff, all the Googleable, I don't know if that's a word, but all the Googleable stuff, we're skipping it. So you can go Google that on your own time. We're digging into the real stuff. So please help me welcome Alex.
What's up?
How are you?
I am good. Good to be here.
Great. Are you a caffeine drinker?
I am. I'm already 3 coffees deep by 1 o'clock. So currently I just have the sparkling water, but I did have my fix of brew earlier today.
3 in, I think that's a fair amount. You can kind of like cut it there.
I think anything past that, my heart starts pounding too much. So anywhere between 1 and 3 is kind of like my happy place.
I don't know if anyone can relate to the over coffee, but I hear you. I'm definitely one of those where you have like a bit too much caffeine and all of a sudden you're
100%.
One of these.
That definitely happens to me. And it's weird because I feel like I've been drinking coffee for so long that it actually, like, coffee doesn't do that much to me anymore. I generally feel like I drink it to avoid the caffeine headache, but then I go from avoiding the caffeine headache to having jitters pretty quickly. So it's an art. It's an art.
You're right in there. Hopefully at 3, we got you in like a good place.
We're doing great right now.
For today. Do you do straight black or do you mix it up with some hazelnut or something?
Yeah, so I do skim milk. My co-founder, Austin, is like a religiously black coffee person where he believes it is sacrilegious to put anything else in the black coffee. But when I don't have milk, I'm fine drinking it without milk. But yeah, splash of skim is my go-to.
I love it. And I love Jeff. 3, but I can quit anytime I want. Likely story. Yeah. Everyone says that. It's totally fine. I can do it without caffeine. And then you see somebody and they're like a mess.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, obviously I introduced you and I told everybody to stalk you, but you wear a lot of different hats. You have a co-founder hat, a CEO hat, you're a podcast host. I mean, you have a lot of things going on. So I'm curious, how would you describe yourself to people?
Yeah. So, I mean, first and foremost, the way I would describe myself is as a co-founder of Morning Brew. And if I was to, go a little bit deeper and say, what are the things that what are the hats I wear, the things that I focus my time on? I think it's basically like two things. It is kind of like the barbell of work in a company, which means the new shit that you're building for the first time. So like the creation of new machines to take something from 0 to 1, not to take something from 1 to 10. So I spend time on the 0 to 1 piece. Then I also spend my time being what I would call like the personal PR engine for Morning Brew, whereby kind of just being in the flow of conversation and building my own brand. My goal is to become a megaphone for all the amazing stuff we're doing as a business, and in turn have that lead to either one, like more dollars, like more revenue from advertisers knowing what Morning Brew is and wanting to get in front of our audience, and also being an accelerant for hiring, where people hear what Morning Brew is, what we're up to, and how we're disrupting media. And from seeing all the great things we're doing, the appetite to actually be a part of it grows as well. So those are kind of like the two places that I focus a lot of my time.
Well, and I feel like you definitely need a megaphone. In my research on you, I don't know if anybody else got this deep, maybe just me, but Morning Brew is hiring a lot of people, which I thought was really interesting right now, considering we're in a pandemic. A lot of these big Fortune 500 companies are on a hiring freeze. It's kind of no new friends is the attitude. And you guys seem, I think I saw it was like you're hiring for like 15 positions or something. So yeah. I'm curious, like, what's the secret sauce? Or if anybody knows anybody here, it sounds like you guys need some good folks. So
we are most definitely hiring. So definitely check out our jobs. And we're hiring for a bunch of roles across every org of the business, especially content. But yeah, I mean, we have been very fortunate in our growth. And I think we've been fortunate because we, from day one, were incredibly, just relentlessly focused on knowing who our reader was and knowing basically what made us different, such that they would give a shit about us and, kind of bless us with their time rather than, blessing another media publication with their time. So we've always been super audience centric. The way we describe our reader or our user at this point is the modern business leader. It is the intellectually curious, aspirational millennial professional. And we've always gotten incredibly specific with describing who that person is. We say we literally write out personas for their age, where they live, what they do after work, what is their favorite go-to cocktail, what documentaries do they watch? Are they a Netflix person or a Hulu person? And I think allowing to do us doing that with such specificity allows us to scale our voice, but also scale our understanding of what our demographic or psychographic wants to be ultimately not just a newsletter company, but a multi-platform media company.
But I'm curious, with all these different personas, in my mind, I'm thinking Kim likes tea, also enjoys Netflix. And then there's Jen likes coffee. And I mean, Jen just asked a really good question, which is, with all these different personas, because not everyone's the same, we're all a mixing pot here in the US. How do you choose which stories, or how do you count on that engagement when you're touching people from all walks of life?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think one is ultimately, building an editorial org that is representative of our reader is so incredibly important. I think the second is having a clear just purpose that we go back to every time we create one of our products. So let's talk about the daily newsletter. The goal of the daily newsletter is very simple. In 5 minutes, we want to provide a one-stop shop of the most important business stories for you to be able to have a smart conversation around the stories that happen. So yes, there are totally different demographics, right? There is Kim, there is Jen, there is Kelly, there's Chris. But at the end of the day, there is a finite amount of news that happens every day. And we like to think of ourselves as kind of the tastemaker of the most important news for this psychographic basically just being the person who cares a lot about business, whether they work in it or don't, and basically don't want to be caught off guard in just a general business conversation. And so we think of ourselves as the tastemaker to curate the most important stories around general business news, and then a great remixer to basically take primary content and redeliver it with a storyline and a tone that we believe will resonate with the modern professional.
And I'm curious, this is a little off topic, but it's my own personal curiosity, and I'm here, so I'm asking it. I feel like so much, like when I think about newsletters 5 years ago, I can remember big, long paragraphs. They were digesting stuff in the industry trades that I was getting, but it was more like stories and articles. And now, obviously with social media, these crazy things and everything, we went from 1 minute to 15 seconds, and now TikToks, they're like 6 seconds or less. And you're like, 6 seconds. I mean, do you find yourself in the evolution of Morning Brew over the years? Okay, when we started Morning Brew a couple years ago, we'd go 2 paragraphs, and now we're down to 1 paragraph. And now can we sum up the news in like 3 sentences?
Right. So I think it's a great question, which is basically one of how does Morning Brew evolve as consumer tastes evolve? And also, something else this makes me think about is, let's just say Morning Brew's reader is on average a 28-year-old, right? 10 years from now, when Morning Brew is still around, the reader of today is going to be 38. How are their content consumption habits going to change? And how are we going to still have a relationship with them? And then the 28-year-old in 10 years is 18 today, someone who grew up on totally different platforms. So how do we think about being proactive and building kind of around these changing behaviors? So the short answer is this. No, the email newsletter has not changed in format really since day one. I think part of the reason is because as it is, an email newsletter is like kind of finite in length, in the sense that like you can't just create like an infinite amount of content like a website. We can't just create more articles in it. Obviously you could like hypothetically have it go on forever, but you kind of can't because email clients don't even really allow you to write that long of emails.
And my Gmail will clip it off.
Exactly. So there's kind of already this kind of like implicit length that's baked into the platform. I think the second thing is from day one, we were always thinking about how do we respect readers' time, and always said like this has to be 5 minutes or less. And so yes, like consumer attention is, everyone says like it's lower than ever before, it's 7 seconds on average, whatever the case. Like I think there's still always going to be a need for different lengths of content for different reasons, right? So like I always think there's going to be an audience who wants to get like the headlines with a little bit of depth so they could speak intelligently about it. There's always going to be an audience that literally just wants the headlines in 30 seconds. And then there's going to always be an audience that wants to go deeper in the headlines and actually read like longer form feature pieces or op-eds. I don't think those like appetites are going anywhere. And so I think the idea is we're currently filling the space of informing you about the most important business news stories in 5 minutes. Which other of these attention categories do we want to work our way into? And what channels do we want to deliver that content through? And so where Morning Brew is going in kind of like this transition from newsletter company to media company means we're going to be talking about more topics in more ways, i.e. like through more different vehicles of delivery than ever before.
Do you think that, obviously you guys have over 2 million subscribers now, which is freaking amazing. I'm curious, do you think that the majority of the way that you're getting people is that word of mouth? Exactly what I was talking about earlier, which is somebody mentioned it to me. I had never heard of it. I went and signed up. Or do you find that, going back to what you were saying, that people are reading other places and more of the traditional advertising has been what's been successful for you?
Yeah, so it's a mix of everything. If you can think of a marketing tactic, we've probably done it. Like I can't think of any marketing strategies we haven't done besides like, ad units on airplanes or something. Like
which wouldn't do well now because no one's in the airplane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The didn't do that.
The acquisition cost of a subscriber from an airplane today would be pretty tough. But when I think about, okay, what have been the most impactful channels? So on the organic side, two that I want to highlight. One is our referral program. Morning Brew's referral program is responsible for at least 300,000 subscribers, meaning 300,000 of our 2.4 million subscribers have gotten at least one referral. So 300,000 people have gotten in our newsletter, go to their unique link in the bottom, take that unique link and text it, email it, carrier pigeon it to someone that they care about, that they want to read Morning Brew, and that person they sent to actually signed up. And so you think about just like the loop of growth that is built in when you can feel a level of confidence that your product is good enough to win over new subscribers in such a way that they want to become your salesperson because they want to win, a mug, a keychain, the Sunday edition of the newsletter, access to a Facebook group. So that's been massive for us. The other thing is cross promotion. Cross promotions with other email newsletters have always done extremely well. The quality of subscriber is extremely high because generally when you cross promote things on the same platform, right, you don't have to teach a new behavior. It's getting cross promoted to an audience who's already reading an email. So you don't need to retrain them to read an email. And so cross promotions have done extremely well. It is just harder to scale because it's so fragmented. You have to reach out to all these different newsletters and schedule cross promotion.
I'm so curious because my instinct would be that you would think that other newsletters are like the devil, like they're all competitors, but you're saying that you actually they're friendly and you swap people.
So there's a few thoughts. One is that at the end of the day, I think people have more than one slot in their day to consume email content or email newsletters. My guess is probably it's somewhere between 2 and 5 slots.
How many times do they go to the bathroom? That's how many slots they have.
Exactly. And so my thought is if we are a product and user first company, basically we should feel confident that we are going to be in our psychographics top 5 slots. And if we're not, then that's not a issue of the cross promotion. That's an issue of the product not being good enough. So that's why I don't worry about it a lot. Is it's pretty simple. Our product has to be really freaking good. And if it's good, people will reserve space for it. If it's not good, we don't deserve for people to read it. We don't deserve people's time. So that's what I think. And, to Kelly's comment about carrier pigeons being a very underrated distribution channel, I absolutely agree. I want to bring the carrier pigeon back. I think, I think someone.
I'm more of a smoke signal girl myself.
Yep.
But
no, half joking, half not. Direct mail has become incredibly popular again in the last.
Wait a minute. What?
Yeah, a lot of direct to consumer companies do direct mail advertising now because it can not only be more targeted, but because everyone forgot about paper and physical mail, it actually is a very low cost marketing tactic for people now.
Okay. Boom. Would not have guessed that in a million years.
Yeah.
And I feel like you also forgot a marketing tactic, which I think is brilliant. And that is your use of the Founders Journal, which for anybody who didn't do their Google stalking, shame on you, but I will fill you in, which is an amazing podcast that Alex has been doing where you're kind of letting people in on the good, the bad, the ugly, the hard, the not so great. And that I feel like is a really rare thing for a founder. So I'm just so curious, what are you hoping that people gain from listening to this?
Yeah. So, I think there's 2 main reasons that I think this product, the idea of Founders Journal, made sense in the market. The first is that I believe that there's a lot of content created around entrepreneurship, but I do believe that the content is generally what I consider to be Instagrammed or Instagramified, whatever the word is. People pull out the ugly, pull out the imperfect, and just show the perfect. And I think that just it perverts the entrepreneurial experience. Building a company is really hard. It's a really just emotionally tolling experience. It's an experience that I think makes you feel more self-conscious in your life than you've ever felt before. And so for me, it's just like an important thing as someone who has such an appreciation for like building business and being creative and innovative, for people to truly understand what they're getting themselves into. And also for existing founders, like people who are running their own businesses and they're going through shit, to not look at all the content being created and think like, am I crazy for what I'm going through right now? So that's the first piece. The second piece is I think that you're just seeing this trend on the internet of the concept is like building in public, where I think inherently human beings are just like voyeuristic and want a backstage pass, because like, again, the feeling of seeing something like at a concert, getting us this insight into the way the band interacts before the show, talking to the band after the show. It's like kind of like being privy to that experience, I think, is really addicting to people. And so to me, this idea of building your company in public, where people see the ups and downs and the things that you don't think are like so sexy, but actually people would find interesting. I think that's a trend that is only going to grow as technology has made content creation easier than ever before. And then for me personally, my thing was that I've always wanted to journal, and I've always been horrible at it. Like I've started writing down in a journal and I just don't keep the habit, and I never knew why. Like I just sucked at it. And so I was like, could I just create a show that forces me to journal, and it allows like us to build up a brand within the business? And so what Founders Journal is 8 to 12 minutes every single day, every single weekday. I record basically the most impactful thing of my day as a founder. So, I've talked about everything from like the manager's paradox of like becoming a manager is a very ego-driven thing, but like, is it what you actually want, or do you want to become a manager for the right reasons? All the way to, literally 20 minutes ago, like right before this, I delivered our, quarterly company address called the State of the Brewnian. And I had one of my most recent episodes was talking through how do I prepare for a speech like that to make it as impactful as possible. And so to me, it's just like, it is like the unfiltered, stream of consciousness behind a founder's journey. And also my hope is, like when I'm 70, if podcasting apps still exist, that I can listen back to my chronicling of the journey.
I'm curious if you could listen to a founder's journal for an entrepreneur that you really like, okay, if Richard Branson did a sort of audio founder's journal, who would you most want to kind of be voyeuristic and listen in on?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say a few people. I'm bad at picking one. One is Naval Ravikant, who founded Angel List. He's just like a really profound and deep thinker. And so I think it'd be amazing to get his thoughts on a daily basis. I think also a founder's journal from like a Tim Ferriss or a Joe Rogan, reflecting on what they learned personally from the conversations of all the people they're interviewing. I think that would be fascinating. And that this is kind of like what you just asked is where I see the opportunity for Founders Journal. I see Founders Journal as being like, or this one show being kind of like the first seed in this entire ecosystem of what I would call like authentic entrepreneurial content. And I see an entire portfolio, literally a portfolio of Founders Journals, where any user can kind of track the journey of entrepreneurs that they want to follow, depending on the industry, age, or type of person that they want to follow.
I will say though, as a founder myself, and also just as a human, it's incredibly scary to put yourself out like that. And I know there are sometimes, I did a post on Instagram last week where like my finger was hovering and I was like, this is either going to be really great and this authentic content is going to resonate with somebody. And if it resonates with one person, then I've done my job. But also people could be really mean and nasty and not so nice. So I think the authentic entrepreneurship concept is really interesting, but you also have to have a really thick skin.
Yeah. So I agree. I think this is just kind of like the way I'm programmed, but I think there are very few things that like truly would embarrass me. Like And I think potentially like almost like my defense mechanism to that is because I'm so incredibly open. It's like everything is out there. So any of like the shit you want to give me shit about, I've already spoken about. And
But I'm
so,
curious, like, was there any story that you were going to share on Founders Journal and you were kind of like, oh, this is a little difficult, or like, oh, I'm a little scared to share this?
yeah, I mean, I think the hardest ones are when I talk about like the self-consciousness of being a founder. Like, I think it is a very real thing where I have just felt imposter syndrome as a co-founder and the CEO of the business. Like, am I actually providing the value that like, based on like the weightiness of my title, am I actually providing what I would consider like deserving value to the company? And that's a question that I've continued to ask myself, and I don't think is going anywhere. Those are always harder to talk about because it's the type of thing where I don't know, because it's kind of an obsession. I don't know if there's anything I could say to talk myself out of it. I could have so much data to say, actually, like I've done a lot, but I think it's just kind of, I latch onto ambiguity sometimes, and have trouble, at least personally, like emotionally, dealing with ambiguity. It's interesting because I think in business, I think I've generally been pretty good at making decisions based on imperfect information. But as it relates to life and like gauging my emotions of personal things, I think ambiguity is like not my best friend at all.
I know it's hard. And I mean, a lot of the questions that you were just referring to, it's also just your own insecurity and being like scared to share or whatever. So in a perfect world, and I'm curious what you think, and, Richard and Kelly and Jen and everybody else who's with us, like, what questions should leaders be asking themselves right now? Like, what are some questions that, whether it's the pandemic or just 2020 in general, like what should we be asking and maybe sharing with other people?
Yeah. So, well, I'll just share the questions that I ask myself a lot. One of the questions that I ask myself is, what am I uniquely qualified at? Like, what am I uniquely great at? In the sense that, like, as time has gone on and as we've hired more people, basically every time you hire someone, you're firing a part of yourself.
You're replacing yourself.
Yeah. And so I think the question then becomes, if you say your superpower is like 4 or 5 things, you're probably not being honest with yourself. And so I always try to answer the question for myself of like, what am I exceptional at? What is the 1 or 2 things? And am I spending at least 50% of my time creating value for the business by leaning into those 1 or 2 things? And if I'm not, why is that the case? Are these things that I need to be doing and there's no one else to do it? Do I need to outsource? How do I, as effectively and quickly as possible, move to a place where I can spend the majority of my time on the things that I'm great at? There's always this debate of do you spend time basically doubling down on the things you're amazing at, or do you build up muscles in the things you're not amazing at? My personal view is like, you should always lean into your superpowers, because also a lot of the time your superpowers are going to be the things that you just enjoy doing, because people enjoy doing things that they're good at. My view is you just need to spend enough time building up the muscles of your non-superpowers so that they don't hold your superpowers back. So I'll give an example. Like, I always said to myself, like, I'm not organized enough. I'm scatterbrained. Like, I can't prioritize effectively. And so for a period of time, I needed to focus my time on getting good enough at being organized, prioritizing and focusing, such that it didn't inhibit the things that I believe I am really good at, which is storytelling, relationship building, and creative thinking.
But I mean, it's also, I'm with you on the superpower thing, because I think for me, I hate like QuickBooks. I hate all the things the CPA does.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, I could do it, but it will take me 5 hours and I'll probably do a C- job. And somebody else, it will take 2 hours and they will do an A+ job. So why am I sitting here for 5 hours doing like kind of a crap job at this? So I totally hear you on leaning into the things that you're good at and the things that you feel like you can get into what I call like a flow state.
Yep.
When you can get into a flow state, you're just like huge. And I think for me, it's not only those things that you're not good at, but also, self-doubt. Self-doubt is a big one. And I can't even imagine, like, just me thinking out loud, starting a newsletter when there are so many other newsletters, the self-doubt of like, how do you overcome that? Or how do you just, and I mean, imagine people do it in corporate as well. If there's a million other people that work on the marketing department, you know, who am I to try to go after that promotion? Like, how do you get over that self-doubt?
Yeah, I mean, so my view is when we first started this, I don't think there was self-doubt. It was, we were naive. Like, yeah, I think you can't have self-doubt if you don't know what you're doubting. So we were college students that basically just said, how do we deliver better business content? And we said, what is like a really cheap way to do it? And what is a way that it already integrates with how people are consuming content? And so it was, email is really cheap. Email is something that college students, especially in the business school, used. And so that's why we chose that. As time went on, you know, my view about like why what we did had so much traction and success despite being in such a crowded space is twofold. One is because newsletters historically have been built as content marketing tools, not as destinations, like email as a destination versus email as a content marketing tool. So I think when you actually cut out all of like emails that are leveraged as content marketing to send you back to website, you've removed a ton of that universe. So then we're only competing, let's say, against like email as destination. And then at the end of the day, the way I think about it is like, there's a finite amount of information in the world. There's only so much like business news that happens every day. And so that talking about that information is rather commoditized, meaning like anyone on the internet could state those facts, right? Like anyone could literally take the breaking story and state those facts. To me, where the differentiation lies is twofold. The curation, because people are competing for our attention more than ever before. Curation, as like basically as technology has gone up, tools for creators have gone up, which means content creation, like just sheer content.
Oh, it's a fire hose.
Has gone up, which means the value of curating and telling people that you know who they are and you know what they care about and this is what they should read, the value of that will continue to go up. And I think the final piece of that is not just the curation, but the delivery mechanism. And I always just use the analogy of like, I don't know, let's take Tesla earnings for a second. Super interesting company, everyone talks about it. And let's just say like I'm at dinner with my family and two members of my family are telling me about Tesla earnings. One is my great uncle, like who smells, is pretty monotone and picks his nose. I don't have a great uncle and he's definitely not watching this, even if I did. So it's okay. And then the other is like, let's say, you know, I have a cousin who's my age, who like genuinely cares about the same type of thing, similarly valued, and just like super passionate about Tesla earnings. So like I feel their passion when they tell me. The content's going to be the exact same. It's going to be the points that the deliverer of the content chooses to include versus not include, and the manner in which it is delivered. And so my view is like, let's be like the cousin, not the step uncle or great uncle, whatever.
I won't even touch on the debates last night, but we could so use a curation around that as well. But I'm curious, you know, speaking of curation and kind of like that person that's kind of giving you their take and giving you their advice, you know, you did start this so young. You know, when you were in college, did you, or do you have right now, like, do you have mentors? Do you have a coach? Like, who's sort of curating that for you?
Yeah. So basically what I would say is like, I don't have like formal mentors, right? Like I don't have a relationship where it's like, hey, John, let's grab coffee and talk about things. I want to pick your brain. Like that's not how it goes.
Okay.
It's more like, okay, if I want to understand how to think about prioritization and resource allocation, I talk to my co-founder because he is in the world at that. If I want to think more about how to be an empathetic leader and do the right thing by our people, I talk to my grandpa. If I want to, you know, learn how to be a better storyteller and speaker and interviewer, I listen to all of Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, and Howard Stern's interviews. Like, so I think there's two pieces to that. One is that I have mentors for different needs that I have. And also some mentors don't even know that they're my mentor because it's a one-way relationship.
Yeah, same page. I'm on the same page as you with that. And I feel like it's really important that you have someone, even if it's a Tim Ferriss and they don't know you exist,
Yep.
That you're going to. I'm such a fan of mentorship. I'm such a fan of coaching. I just feel like if it's good enough for Tom Brady, like it's good enough for me. And by God, he has like 5 trainers and 2 nutritionists and
Yep.
a dietitian and a coach and all these people that I'm like the Tom Brady of business. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I feel like if somebody was wanting to kind of jump into entrepreneurship or maybe take more of a leadership role in their workplace or their corporate job, what would you tell them besides run? Because that's normally what I say when people ask about entrepreneurship. I'm like, run away.
So my answer would be understand truly what entrepreneurship is. And that's exactly why, again, like, not to be self-promoting, but like that is why I created Founders Journal, is like find authentic chronicling of the entrepreneurial experience so you know what you would be getting yourself into. So that's the first part. And then the second part is understand your risk tolerance, because entrepreneurship is only meant for a certain subset of people that have a certain risk lovingness, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's just a fact. There's just more uncertainty. And I would say the final thing is also just think about, is there anything that you are extremely passionate about such that you could do and think about the same thing for 5 years and not be bored or overwhelmed? Like, to me, that is how I would approach thinking about entrepreneurship full time. There's a whole spectrum though. Like, you could be people are entrepreneurial also, like working in corporate America. People are entrepreneurial doing, side hobbies or side hustles or starting a nonprofit on the side. So I guess my answer is kind of just talking about actually being like a full-time startup founder, but to be entrepreneurial, like you don't have to listen to Founders Journal to do that. You can just like, basically, in my mind, it's find a problem, focus on that problem, solve a problem in a new and interesting way.
100%. And I always tell people, actually do the opposite of what you did, which is I'm like, if you are interested in entrepreneurship or whatnot, and you think I want to go start a peanut butter business, or I want to go start a socks company or whatever, to me, I'm like, go ask Dave from Bombas for a job.
Yep.
Work at Bombas, figure out how a sock company even works, because you might get there and go, oh, wait, I don't want to start a socks company. Like, now that I see how this all works, I don't actually want to do that.
I think what you're basically saying, which I totally agree with, is there's I've seen this said in like so many different times in life, but it's basically like, if you imagine there's like, okay, a circle of life, and in that circle is like all knowledge you could have. And then you have what I would say is a smaller circle, and that's all of the things that you know about. Like, not that you not that you know as in like playing the guitar. You may know of the activity of playing the guitar, but not actually know how to play the guitar. And then there's a smaller circle of all the things that you truly like know that you know. And so the big thing is in life, figuring out effectively your blind spots, which are the things that you don't know that you don't know, and moving those to be the things that you know that you don't know. And so the example of like going to work at Bombas in order to think about starting your own sock company, in my mind, is the definition of pushing things that are inevitably blind spots, things that you don't know about building a sock company, into the knowing that you don't know. So then you can at least evaluate, now that you know about all the things you don't know about this, are you still as excited about doing it?
100%. And I feel like that's true even if you have a corporate job too. Like, I feel like that's just true as like an everyday life thing. And it's funny that you said that, because when I was looking at Lucia's answer or question right here, biggest advice for someone starting out, for me, like that is the biggest advice. Like, I don't know if you would have a different, she just graduated in May, but I don't know if you would have a different answer to that. But how you just answered that question is actually how I would answer this question.
Yeah, 100%. And what I'd say is like, we have this phrase at the Brew when people join and are onboarded that their first week is sponge week. But like, I'll actually say that like probably the first few years of your career is like sponge years, the sponge phase, which is just like being an absolute sponge of knowledge, not just about like the specific work you're doing, but like even like the broader business and industry. Like when I think about the people in our company that I'm just like most impressed by, and that I'm most bullish on their professional trajectory, is the people who gain mastery over their given domain by spending just a ton of time on it, making mistakes, and just like pushing through those mistakes, but also people who have like lateral curiosity also and are trying to find out everything possible about everything outside of their role in the business to put the dots together to actually make them better and more informed in the work that they're doing.
I mean, how has it been? Obviously, you just talked about people on your team and the sponge week, and obviously we talked about your hiring or bringing people on. What are some mistakes, or maybe this could be a future episode of Founders Journal, I don't know, but like, what are some mistakes that you've made when it comes to company culture, or when it comes to trying to, have people absorb this sponge week as fast as possible?
Yeah. So 3 things come to mind. The first is mistakes in hiring have always been when we rush the process. Whenever we want to hire for a role, let's say
that's true in dating too.
Yeah, let's say we've spent 2 to 3 months recruiting for a role. We got someone to the last round interview. We were super excited about them. And then we gave an offer and they rejected it. We're feeling depleted. We're feeling like, oh my God, we're just starting this process over. In the past, we made the mistake of like pulling the trigger on a newly recruited batch of people too soon. That never works out and always wastes a lot of time. Let's say like emotional capital and money. So that's the biggest mistake there. On the part about just like culture, I think a big thing that we have done not a great job of is basically cross-organizational learning. Meaning, I'll just use an example. Like one of our teams in the Brew does a daily stand-up, has been doing a daily stand-up during COVID as a way to just like see others' faces for 15 minutes, shoot the shit, and then talk about priorities. We should be great at taking that insight and telling other team leaders, this is something that XYZ team does. They're loving it as a way to just like be interacting with other human beings. Have you even thought about doing this for yourself? That takes I think a level of like cross-functional ownership from a people perspective that we don't necessarily have right now. And it's something that we're going to have to build over time. The final one is around just like firing. Unfortunately, we've had to fire people as a business. That is a function of running a company. Luckily, this hasn't had to happen a lot of times. But the first time we ever let someone go, we were highly ineffective at doing it, in communicating it in the right way where everyone in the organization knew about it, such that they didn't feel blindsided weeks or months down the road. And so we've just had to, again, learn from that experience and make sure communication about people leaving voluntarily or involuntarily is absolutely airtight. So those are 3 big learnings.
And when it comes to, finding the right people so that you don't have to fire them, yep. Do you have any like special tests? Or I know, Tim Ferriss, like the questions, like if there's one specific question that you always ask during the interview process, like what is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, my favorite question is, what is something that you're incredibly passionate about, and teach me about it. So my thing is, what is something that you are absolutely obsessed with, that you could jam out on for hours or days, that in your free time you spend time thinking about or working on? And I want you to teach me about it, because like odds are I probably know so much less than you about it. Tell me about it. So let's just say hypothetically, let's say Kim was really into plants. I just see a plant over your right shoulder. And you spend a ton of your time thinking about plants, thinking about the angle where to put plants in your home, how to water them, the different species of plants. You actually know the family tree. To me, there's nothing that is more like music to my ears than basically getting a 30-minute masterclass on plants. It shows to me like whether or not you actually like know how to go down the rabbit hole and just how far you're able to go, how obsessive of a person you actually are. And by the way, the downstream benefit is like, now I know more about plants in life.
You're like, now I know how to juggle. Amazing.
Exactly. That's going to be my ultimate plan for learning how to play guitar.
Oh, totally. I'm curious. So then on the other side, the interviewee, what mistake do you see them making the most? Like somebody does this in an interview and you're like, no, don't do that.
So the first thing is just like asking absolute layup questions at the end of the interview. Like, I think, there's been this shift from people interviewing, or like the interviewee, I feel like have just always been told by people who mentor them that like, you need to ask questions at the end.
Right.
And so then people are like, okay, I need to ask questions at the end, but then they ask like dumb layup questions at the end that potentially they could have answered by watching interviews or looking up information about the company. And to me, that's actually worse than not asking a question at all, because it signals that you just did something because it was like what it was societally appropriate, but you actually didn't give a shit enough to actually do your homework and come up with smart questions. On the flip side, it's like a very high volatility thing in the sense that if you ask incredibly smart questions, it, like, to me, that is like one of the most attractive things about a great candidate.
Well, and to me, what I really like about candidates is when they show a passion for learning. I'm like obsessed with learning because I feel like that is a skill that I can teach you how to do a lot of stuff. Like I can mold you like Play-Doh, yep. But I can't teach you to be a hustler, and I can't teach you to love learning. And I feel like you're somebody that loves learning about new things. So I'm just curious, like what are you continuing to learn right now, or what's something that sparked you and you're down the rabbit hole of learning?
Yeah. So basically, there's a few things that I'm particularly interested in right now. Something that I'm just studying more and more is like the creation of communities and what community will mean like 15 years from now, and looking at like the fringes of the internet to see communities that are trying new and different things that no one's ever seen before. I'll give you an example. Something I'm fascinated by is like our generation's version of like AIM chat rooms. What is the manifestation of like adult clubhouses for niche interests that are synchronous in nature, where you can pop in and spend time talking to and experience things with people around a shared interest? So meaning, like, let's say Kim was super passionate about plants, and there was a plant community where not only could you have asynchronous experiences with them where like, it's on Slack or email communicating back and forth on your own time, but also like there was actually like a plant city where you like literally virtually could pop into the community when you have a free 15 minutes, and anyone else who's in the community, you could just start engaging in conversation with, and you actually kind of see them in a virtual world. So I'm fascinated by the idea of kind of like bringing a synchronous form to community, because most communities are asynchronous, and kind of what like virtual worlds are doing for community, but for adults, because ultimately, like, my parents' generation, it'll probably never catch on as a behavior. But for my generation, who are growing into parents and adults, it's a behavior that potentially we would pick up. And so to me, that's why it's really interesting to think about it.
I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole. I can't even imagine like the dark corners of the internet you find yourself on a Friday night.
Again, there's a website that I just found out about. It's called gather.town. And basically it is like the technology or the platform to build your own synchronous cities. And so it's just, again, it's a fun exercise to think about. What are the benefits of that? What are the limitations of that? What city would you build if you could? What would make it work?
I've always wanted to be the mayor of a city.
Well, now you have a chance.
Now I can make it happen.
You can do that tomorrow.
I'll be visiting that site when we hang up for sure. Okay, but now that I'm almost finished with my tea that you can really see. I have like lightning round questions.
Let's do it.
Which basically consist of us like copying your homework, but it's totally cool.
Sounds
right?
Good.
You're good with us copying your homework.
I'm good with the plagiarism.
You're fine with that.
Yeah.
What is the best thing that you have started using or doing lately that you love?
Peloton bike boot camps.
That's a good one.
Peloton
You have a favorite instructor?
Alex Toussaint.
I was about to say Alex.
Or
Cody. I like Cody.
Or Jess. I always forget her last name. There's Jess Sims and there's just someone else. I think it's the other one. But yeah, Peloton bike boot camp is amazing.
That's a good one. Okay. What is the best gift that you've given yourself or done for yourself in the last year?
Bought myself a $2,000 writing course.
Okay, amazing. Tell me more. What course was it? Where'd you find out about it?
So it is David Perel, who is another.
I follow him on Twitter.
Yep. So David Perel, really fascinating guy. He started by just writing super interesting thought pieces on the internet. Mm-hmm. And then he created effectively like a course called Rite of Passage to teach about the way he writes and kind of build your brand through writing great content and building a monopoly over like your specific content expertise. And yes, exactly.
You feel like it was worth it?
So I think it was extremely worth it, partially because like I reference back to it and I reference certain lessons from time to time because it's always available. It is a big commitment though. So it's the type of thing like you need to at least commit to the fact at some point in your life, you're going to go use that content because it obviously costs a lot of money. But I think this connection of just like, not just writing, but it like to me, it's basically to make smart decisions in life, you need to think clearly. To think clearly, you can write. But then you can also use your writing as an amplification tool for bringing what he calls like serendipity towards you, because you put great content on the internet, a self-selecting group of people are going to naturally gravitate towards your content, want to engage you about it, connect with you, follow you, be your super fan. And so I think this kind of like dual purpose nature of writing, allowing you to think clearly and make clearer decisions while also leveraging your writing as a brand building tool and an amplification tool is like probably the most powerful concept that any professional should truly understand.
100%. And I'm so with Jen, and I'm glad she said it, that I have no problem investing in myself. Like, I know that there are some women who say, I want designer shoes, or I want a designer bag, or I want a car or a vacation. To me, I'm like, if I'm investing in myself in the form of education, that's like the best, the best money you will ever spend, because it's going to last a lifetime.
I totally agree.
So I'm curious, what newsletter besides Morning Brew do you subscribe to that you really love?
So I'm going to say, no, I'll say one. Packy McCormick connecting all of these dots. Packy McCormick was a student of David Perel's Rite of Passage course, and he worked in the startup landscape for, I believe, Breather, which is like the company that lets you rent workspace. He was, I think, a general manager for them. He quit his job and now writes full time. And he writes a newsletter called Not Boring Club. And the whole idea is he kind of takes this like incredibly fun twist on writing about businesses, but doing long form storytelling about companies in a way that feels like, gamified and pop culturally. Like you read his stories and you're like, this feels like a saga and a movie. It doesn't feel like a business piece, but you learn about business through it. So I think Not Boring is my favorite newsletter.
And how do we find it? We just go to like notboring.com or something, or how do you get it?
I gotta thank Jeffrey Walsh for basically providing all of the links that I'm pulling out. So I don't know if it's Packy M. One second. It's Not Boring. So if you just go here, let me put it here. Can I comment or no? Oh, actually, no. I'm going to put it in the private chat, and then you guys can add it. It's notboring.substack.com. Done.
Okay. What is one thing that you need more of in your life right now?
Focus.
Focus. That's hard. We're in a pandemic. What do you want to do?
It is hard, but I think focus is like the most important thing. It allows you to use your time as well as you could possibly use it. Time is your most scarce resource. You need to align your values to your time, and focus allows you to do that over a long period of time.
And I have one more question, but I'll let Larissa get one in really quick, which is, what book are you reading right now?
Yeah, so I'm reading Reed Hastings, the co-founder and CEO of Netflix. He just came out with a book called No Rules Rules, which was how Netflix built like a culture of reinvention and innovation. And I'm reading that book right now because Netflix is known for like a pretty unorthodox culture. And so I'm just interested in kind of studying how they've built things.
How they did it. Okay, last question. Can you please give us some homework or like a challenge? So what is one thing that all of us, everyone, should be trying this week? It could be a food, it could be a book, it could be a TV show, breathing exercise. I don't know. Yep. But what should we all try this week?
So what I would say is, as someone who is always trying to become a better learner, I think an incredible learning exercise that forces you to go down the rabbit hole is this. You take an article that you find particularly interesting. So let's just say, you take an article about the debate yesterday, okay? And the idea is, okay, you should pick an article that only takes like 5 to 10 minutes to read. And your goal, your goal of this exercise is to turn that 5 to 10 minute read into a 60-minute thing. And what I mean by that is basically forcing yourself to go down the rabbit hole or wiki hole, meaning you use this one piece of 5-minute or 10-minute content to like force your curiosity to then like click through a link, look something else about it, and basically turn a 5-minute article into a 60-minute lesson that all started from the foundation of information in this article.
I love it. Like teaching yourself to be curious.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay. If anyone finds an interesting article, please tag Alex or I in it, because maybe we'll use that for our homework.
I'd love to do that.
It's a really good challenge. Well, thank you, Alex, for joining today. I feel like you've been such a star and given us so many gems, and I'm sure you're going to get lots of subscribers now to Founders Journal. So get ready to have even more people prying into your personal life. But that's what you asked for, right?
I did. No, I would love for people to listen to the show, to leave a rating. Let me know if there are specific things around entrepreneurship that I could talk about that I haven't talked about yet. It's a community that we're trying to build with it.
Where should people, where do you spend the most time? Where should people learn and follow you? Is it Twitter? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? Where should people connect?
LinkedIn and Twitter are kind of my two big platforms. I would say on LinkedIn, I talk more about like entrepreneurial lessons, management, and just I would say higher level, more like philosophical questions I ask of myself as a professional. Twitter, I would say I talk a little bit more tactically about media, marketing, and management. So they kind of complement to each other in the sense that Twitter is kind of like the downstream actions taken by my upstream thoughts that I share on LinkedIn.
I love it. It's a 1-2 punch.
Exactly.
Can't have one without the other. Well, thank you so much. You've been the best. And also next week, it's going to be my birthday party. So I hope you can join next Wednesday because it's my birthday and we're just going to do an AMA and it's going to be me and we're going to have people pop in. I'm going to put a StreamYard link and people can pop in and we're just going to I might make a cake.
Everyone should definitely check it out and happy early birthday.
Thank you. Well, sending a big cheers and thank you to you. Have a great rest of the week.
Cheers. Have a good day, guys.
See ya.